Good evening. There was a stark warning from the Prime Minister today that by tomorrow, the Omicron variant will be responsible for the majority of COVID infections in London. Visiting a vaccine centre in Westminster, Boris Johnson warned of a tidal wave of cases and urged everyone to take up their offer of a booster jab. But that was proving a difficult task today, with people queuing for hours outside walk-in centres across the capital. Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
Even before doors opened, the COVID booster queues were long. At Tommy's, the line stretched out through the hospital grounds and onto Westminster Bridge. It was going to be a long wait.
It's okay. I've got my phone, I can check my emails, I can keep an eye on things, but yeah, I thought it's worth a try.
I waited quite a long time for my first one. I think I've got the time. I might as well hold out and wait today and get it over and done with.
We had the day off today, nothing else to do, so thought we'd come along and queue up.
In Paddington, the Prime Minister applied a sticking plaster and gave an update.
We can see Omicron spiking now in London and some other parts of the country. Here in the capital, it probably represents about 40% of the cases. By tomorrow, it'll be the majority of the cases, and it's increasing the whole time.
Queues also formed outside pharmacies. Ruby and Miles were searching for somewhere to get a booster, so far without success.
We tried to go up by some square over there.
King Square
and they were shut between 12:30 and 2:30.
But people in the queue were like, well, we'll try until 2:30 then.
But we've tried here and we can't. But we'll try again.
It's estimated around 2.9 million Londoners are entitled to a booster injection before the end of the month. But there are still around 1.3 million Londoners who haven't had a first jab.
I've had my booster, so has my wife, so has my mum. Both my adult children have booked their appointment to receive the booster. I wouldn't be advising as Londoners to do if I didn't think if it wasn't safe myself.
While vaccination centres were busy, some parts of London were noticeably quieter. That's because from today, the government wants anyone who can to work from home. London Underground said 250,000 fewer passengers used the tube during this morning's rush hour. At Liverpool Street, a Salvation Army band, booked before Plan B, was on hand to try to get commuters in the festive spirit.
I'm heading into work, but I have the opportunity to work from home, so what I'll probably do is 2 days at home and 3 days in the office.
Having now worked in the office for quite some time, for a number of months, I'm not able to make the plans that I would need to work from home permanently. So I'm certainly here in London today and I'm working in the office today.
For us, we can work from home or go to the office. I prefer going to the office and working face to face.
On the 18th floor of a city office block, Patrick was on his own. The rest of his team are working from home, so no more face-to-face meetings and lunches with clients. The financial sector doesn't like it.
You can feel the echo. It's very different from last Friday. Certainly, having that buzz in the city. London's the best city in the world, and it's just incredible to see it pretty much like a ghost town today.
London has more than 400 vaccination centres, with more on the way. But getting everyone who needs a booster jabbed in the next 18 days will test the NHS. Simon Harris, ITV News.
Next tonight, with the Omicron variant surging in London, we are at the forefront of how effective the government's Plan B is at allowing us all to have a relatively normal Christmas. Yesterday, almost 13,000 people tested positive for coronavirus in the capital. That's the highest number since last January. Right now, MPs are voting on those Plan B measures, and they are not without criticism, especially within Boris Johnson's own party. From Uxbridge, here's our political correspondent Simon Harris.
Adam is happy to follow the rules, but the Plan B restrictions are testing his patience. He runs a barber's shop in Uxbridge, where his local MP is Boris Johnson.
We are week before Christmas. We should be by now hustling and bustling. As you can see, we're not that busy this morning.
How much do you blame the Prime Minister?
That's a tough one. I blame all politicians, to be honest with you, in general.
The Prime Minister has seen his approval ratings nosedive according to some opinion polls. But in his constituency, some voters are prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I think he's doing as well as he can. Whatever he does, he's wrong. So I'm quite happy to go with whatever he says.
At times he's stupid, but he's done a good job getting us all vaccinated. You can't fault him for that at all.
Do you still support him?
Yes.
Have you lost confidence in him?
A little bit. Yeah, just slightly. Yeah.
Would you vote for him again?
At the moment, yes.
I think he's lost it recently.
He's lost the plot.
I think we need a female Prime Minister.
Big time. He's lost it big time.
For now, the Prime Minister's immediate troubles are 15 miles east of Uxbridge in Parliament, where a large number of Tory MPs are expected to vote against the Plan B rules.
I believe that the country needs to get back to normal life again, and I think that every time there's some kind of risk, if we lock down every time, there'll be no end to it.
But in the Commons, the Health Secretary warned of many more hospital cases without Plan B.
Scientists have never seen a COVID-19 variant that's capable of spreading so rapidly. So we have to look at what we can do to slow Omicron's advance.
They need our support.
The government's discomfort was underscored by the MP for Ilford North, newly promoted as Labour's health spokesperson.
We believe these measures are necessary, a necessary response to the Omicron threat.
With Labour's support, mandatory mask wearing and COVID passes will easily pass into law, but all eyes will be on the numbers, just how many Tory MPs defy the party whip. This rebellion will be difficult for the Prime Minister because he knows it's not just about COVID restrictions. It's also a measure of how angry many Conservative MPs are about his performance in recent weeks. Before the debate, a senior minister tried to reassure the rebels Plan B restrictions would be enough to allow most families to enjoy a normal Christmas.
Simon, just how big a test is this then for Boris Johnson?
I think it's more of a shot across the bows than a direct challenge to his leadership. There is, of course, genuine anger among some Tory MPs about the COVID restrictions, and that is compounded by the scandals that have beset Downing Street recently, notably that social gathering last December. I think what the rebels are looking for are signs that the Prime Minister has got a grip, that the Downing Street operation is becoming more disciplined. But there's a by-election in Shropshire on Thursday. If the Tories lose that safe seat, the disquiet among the rebel MPs will become louder. The vote in the Commons is going through in the next few minutes. The government will win, but only with Labour's support, and that is not a comfortable place for the Prime Minister to be in.
Indeed. Simon, thank you. Good evening. The accusations have been around for a week, but late last night came the photo and it was damning. Conservative former mayoral candidate Sean Bailey smiling with his team at a party. It was last December when London was in Tier 2 restrictions. Mixing between households was banned. This afternoon, he apologised unreservedly, but the Mayor, Sadiq Khan, is now calling on his one-time rival to stand down as an Assembly member, and fellow Tories aren't being too supportive either. Our political correspondent Simon Harris has the latest.
A tasty-looking buffet to one side. Someone's wearing a paper hat. There are glasses of wine. No wonder everyone's smiling. It's a party. And at the centre of it all, Sean Bailey, the Conservative candidate for Mayor of London. But this was last December, when social gatherings were banned by Tier 2 lockdown restrictions.
Apologies have been received from Assembly Member Bailey.
Sean Bailey wasn't at today's meeting of the London Assembly Police and Crime Committee. He resigned as chair yesterday, but was still a member. His political opponents seized the moment.
Speaking on behalf of my group, we say that Assemblymember Bailey should step down from the Police and Crime Committee with immediate effect.
If we think back to last year and compare this behaviour with the care and sacrifice that everyone was making, that behaviour just goes against the principles and standards of public life.
Even the leader of the Conservative group didn't defend her colleague.
I will just say my colleagues and I were deeply disappointed when we saw that picture. To have a party last year was wrong, but he has done the right thing. He has stood down.
But that wasn't enough for some Assembly members. It was time to call in the law. In a joint letter to the Met Commissioner, Labour, Lib Dem and Green members of the London Assembly called for a new police investigation. They said the picture seemed to indicate a clear breach of the regulations and laws. In the run-up to May's election, Sean Bailey made tackling crime his #1 manifesto priority. Less than 3 weeks before last December's party, he had this to say about COVID rules.
If we need to have some rules, of course we should have some rules.
The man who beat him at the ballot box in May was unforgiving.
Look, I think it's inevitable. He's going to have to resign from the Assembly. I can't see how he stays on the London Assembly. I don't see how Londoners can have any confidence on him still being on the Assembly. And I'm sure it's just a matter of time before he steps down. It's the right thing to do.
Those at the party were members of Bailey's campaign team. Today, he apologised, saying in a statement, "It was a serious error of judgment at a time when Londoners were making immense sacrifices to keep us all safe, and I regret it wholeheartedly."
I think the picture is disgraceful and it will be properly investigated, I'm sure, by whomever the correct authorities are.
12 months ago, Sean Bailey was campaigning to be elected mayor and happy to appear before the cameras at any opportunity. Today, he was nowhere to be seen.
Some developing news now, and the Mayor has just announced a rise in council tax to help plug TfL's financial black hole. Sadiq Khan says he's been left with no alternative but to plan to increase council tax in London by around £20 a year over the next 3 years. Simon is here with me now. What more do we know then?
Well, Transport for London and the government have been involved in difficult negotiations in recent days to try to secure a long-term funding deal before TfL runs out of cash on Friday. Well, a few minutes ago, the Mayor accused ministers of holding London to ransom by effectively threatening to withdraw all emergency funding unless he comes up with new ideas to raise money. That means, he says, he's got no alternative to keep TfL from collapsing, so council tax is likely to rise. £20 a year, as you say, for the average bandee council taxpayer over the next 3 years. There'll also be changes to travel cards. The age Londoners are eligible for the over 60 senior Oyster card will be ratcheted up slowly over the next 12 years. The off-peak fares on the Piccadilly line to Heathrow will be scrapped. And TfL will withdraw from something called the National Travel Card Agreement, which means you won't get your tube fare included if you travel across London. Proposals at the moment we haven't yet heard from the government.
I'm sure we soon will. Thank you very much, Simon.
Good evening. It's the record no one wanted to break. More than 23,000 positive COVID cases reported in the capital in 24 hours. That's the most since the pandemic began. The Prime Minister insists there's no need to lock down again. But scientists tell us we still don't know how serious Omicron could be, and we should be cutting back on our social plans. In a moment, we'll take a look at London's hospitality industry, who say its Christmas is already cancelled. But first, our political correspondent Simon Harris on the COVID confusion.
One message at least is getting through. 80,000 Londoners a day are having their booster jab. They were queuing outside UCL, outside a pharmacy in Kentish Town, and at more than 400 vaccination centres in the capital. But are the rules about socialising and partying equally clear?
On the one hand, there's the message for everyone to get jabbed, but on the other hand, you're still able to go to nightclubs.
Like, whatever the rules are now will probably be different in like a couple more days. It's a little confusing for the ones on the receiving end of it, but it'll take a while, but I'm sure we'll figure it out.
Appearing before MPs today, the government's chief medical officer tried to clarify what he thinks we should do in the face of Omicron.
Prioritise the things that really matter to you, but don't. But if you wish to do those things and wish to do so and not end up self-isolating or unwell at a time you really don't want to be, then you're probably going to want to do fewer other things.
The government argues there is a big difference between Christmas 2021 and Christmas 2020, and that's because of the vaccine. In one sense, the rules last Christmas were more straightforward. London was in Tier 4, essentially lockdown. Almost everywhere was shut, and we were all told to stay at home. This year, there's more freedom to choose, but for some businesses, the lack of clear rules is unhelpful.
I think it's incredibly difficult at the moment. We don't know what's going on. There's so much hesitation from the general public. And, you know, as a business owner, this makes it so challenging. We don't know whether we're able to plan events, whether we should be cancelling everything.
The capital is officially Britain's Omicron hotspot. On Wednesday, December the 1st, there were 5,668 new COVID cases in London. A week later, on December the 8th, it had risen to 6,988 cases. By yesterday, it had jumped to 19,294 cases. By contrast, there were 183 people on ventilators in London hospitals 2 weeks ago. A week ago, it was 193. Today, it's 195.
We still need to get more reliable data about Omicron, and I think over the next few weeks we will be getting that data. But hopefully what this is showing is that, yes, it's got high transmissibility, but that the severity of it is less.
One person who has changed her plans is the Queen. This year's traditional Christmas lunch at Windsor for her extended family has been cancelled. Simon Harris, ITV News.